So welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm Renee Meddy. The first thing I'd like you guys to do is just turn to a partner and introduce yourself with a handshake and a smile. And if you're brave enough, or a hug, if you're brave enough, go ahead and say, "So glad to see you here today." Okay. So just notice how that was for you. Comfortable, uncomfortable, neutral. Yeah? He's all for it. So what I need to let you know is that I just gave you all a shot of oxytocin. Oxytocin is a hormone and a neurotransmitter. It's also called the love hormone. And that's often produced through touch. So oxytocin releases serotonin, which makes you feel happy, right? And it taps into the reward center of your brain. It builds love, bonding, and connection. It alters the activity part in your brain that makes you feel good and is part of that reward center that releases dopamine. And you get a lot of little dopamine hits. So this is important as we go through the talk today. So there are a few considerations to take into account today. First, you are being seduced. Without even realizing it, your brain, specifically your lizard and your limbic system, is being hijacked. The lizard brain, which is your fight, flight, freeze center and is located right down by your brainstem, as well as your limbic system, which is central to emotion and motivation and controls your behavior, is all part of the systems that were just hijacked when I spread some oxytocin. Now, unbeknownst to you, I was spreading a little love, but not all hijackings are positive. So how many times do you think you unlock your phone a day? Just call some 260. What else? 127. See, you guys are like in the thick of being raised with phones, so you guys know I don't always get these numbers, but 80 times per day of unlocking your phone. Now, how many times do you think you touch your phone? 1,000? Anyone else? Okay, because sometimes the notifications pop up where you like take it and just look, right? Anybody else? Then how many times is it like, are you, maybe it's on vibration or something? Yeah. Any guesses? 2,617, right? And how many minutes do you think it takes to get back on task when you're distracted? Close. Very close. According to Gloria Marx, it's 23 minutes. 23 minutes to rebound from a distraction to get back to exactly where you were in that flow of the task at hand. Now, how often do you think we're interrupted? Every 2 minutes? Sometimes. On 15, on average, every 11 minutes. So no wonder sometimes you might feel like you're on a hamster wheel or behind the 8 ball, right? And so you can't even catch up to get back to the task at hand before you're interrupted again. So we're hijacked by all kinds of distractions, especially when we're in autopilot. So just a few examples. We probably all face this, right? One of the most enticing notifications we can receive around social approval, vanity, rejection, acceptance, these are all on the line when notifications show up. And I'm not just going to click and check the likes and who liked it and who commented and take 20 minutes to do that. Sometimes it takes me away for hours. Anyone experience that where you just kind of go down the rabbit hole, right, of social media? So those 20 minutes that could have been spent doing something you value have just been seduced away. And oftentimes we're just running an autopilot, right? And so these apps are created with this intention to keep you in the app, There's a reason YouTube will just autoplay your next video. There's a reason you're scrolling, right? Because there is no end. You can just keep going and going. And so these dopamine hits contribute to our feeling of connection and belonging. Now, connection and belonging are fundamental human needs, and they're fundamental in human motivation. Belonging to a group is essential to our survival, and our brains are wired to survive. So it goes back to those tribal days, right? We are wired to survive and be part of a group, and so we're just wired to be social beings. Now, how about this? I was going to say I just did this yesterday, but frankly, I just did this an hour ago. You pull to refresh an email, right? You see whatever emails you see, and within 60 seconds, you're refreshing again. Now, how often do we, is there anyone that's really that important, or we're going to get that most important email that's going to arrive in 60 seconds? No, right? But this is a habit. These are just automatic things that we do. And so what we really are working towards is an awareness around this autopilot so that we can create new mental habits. And this seduction is coming from the creators of these apps. And this is not about bashing apps or bashing technology. It's really just about bringing awareness, right? Because this world is moving really fast. And so when we can bring some awareness to what is happening automatically, we will have choice in the matter. So like our phone has default settings, you get your phone, it comes unpackaged. All these default settings are there. Unless you go in consciously and take off the notification settings, your phone's just going to blow up with all kinds of things. And so similarly, our brains have default settings, and that's based on our conditioning. And we're going to react certain ways to certain situations based on the way we've reacted to them before to stay alive. Now, here's a great example of how our brains will scan for patterns and how we notice negative things first. So you get your grades back, or you get a review from your boss, right? And you have all A's and 1 B. Or you get your review back from your boss, and it's like 95% positive and 1 negative comment. Where does your attention go? The negative comment or the B, right? Disregarding all of that positive feedback. And so they say it takes about 5 positive pieces of feedback or 5 positive experiences to override 1 negative experience. Now, what if I told you you had choice in the matter? My goal for today and for humanity is to teach you about the power of choice in order to thrive and not just survive. So I have a big idea. And my idea is that we have to slow down, way, way down. Now, that sounds counterintuitive in the way the world is working and how we're communicating. Information is coming to us a lot faster. We're producing a lot more information than we normally would. But slowing down will actually help you with your performance, your effectiveness, and communicating in a greater way. Slowing down will give you an advantage, and speeding up or trying to keep up will just actually leave you behind. And as a type A personality and a recovering perfectionist, when someone told me this over 5 years ago, I was like, no way, you don't understand. I don't have time. I'm running a business. I have 3 children, ages 4 and under. I don't have time to slow down. But through a mindfulness practice and some other experiences, I slowed down, and what happened was transformational for me. Not only, I can't say that I'm doing any less now, but the way I relate to the work I do and what I can hold on my plate is I'm in a completely different relationship to it. Because you see, 5-10 years ago, I actually prided myself on the fact that I could multitask and that I could hold so much on my plate and do it calmly and do it with some general ease. But when I slowed down, I was actually able to do a little bit more, and my performance was a whole lot better. And you know what they say about insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, right? And so if you want to have impact and influence and stand out in your work and life, you have to understand human behavior. We are not actually wired to multitask. We are only wired to do one thing at a time. And so we're living in a time and attention economy, and that's how we're communicating these days, right? Our attention is being pulled, which then demands our time. And so 3 things play out in this time and attention economy. The first thing is that the demand of our attention demands our time, and then sometimes leads to a devoid of communication and connection. And so you're spinning your wheels, trying to change things. You're looking to be a better student, maybe have a better job, better work environment, better relationships. But change doesn't work if you want something sustainable. All Coke did was change. Now, the new Coke was a failure, but not all change is failure. Look at Spanx. They made a better girdle. You need transformation, a brand new way to look at things, a way to look at things that you never thought possible. And so if you look at the iPhone, the phone changed form, it got smaller, but what Steve Jobs did was really change the experience that someone had with a communication device. And you can see transformation often in design. That's a place that can be really visible and tangible for people. Transformation isn't about improving, it's about rethinking. And that's Malcolm Gladwell, if you guys are familiar with Blink. By slowing down and becoming self-aware, you will increase your ability to focus your attention, get more time, and deepen your connection and communication with others with greater ease. So what's your choice? Time and attention are finite resources, but choice is infinite. Here's the thing. You have to become self-aware because your autopilot is killing your creativity and the ability to have deep human connection. And choice comes from awareness. And for many of us, it's really easy to just rest in, oh, I have bills to pay, I have study, I have a really heavy workload this semester, or even just like, this is what the life that was dealt to me. I have no choice. But you always have a choice, right? So let's move to a choice economy. Now imagine a world where you get up in the morning and you have choice on how you skillfully adapt to your day, choose where you place your attention and how you place your attention and where you spend your time. Now, new ideas are not without fear. Can you guys see a video up there? Okay, let's hope this works. When you're disregarding those comfortable and habits and ways of being, sometimes it's really difficult to move into something new and to the unknown. And so I was fortunate so this is my daughter when she was 7, and I captured kind of the inner dialogue of what many of us maybe have thought about in our process. Yes, absolutely. We're right here.
I want to do it here.
All right.
Mommy, if I go in and I get scared,
You can do it. You'll pop right back up, and then you're going to go over to the ladder if you need to. You can totally
I'm not making her do this. She wanted to. Just
the butterflies in the belly.
then I'm making her do it.
I would do it if I had a life jacket.
You're good. We're right here,
I would
baby.
do it if I had a life jacket.
You wouldn't go down if you had a life jacket. You can do it.
Mommy, can you ask if I can fly?
You're going to do it.
No judgment on my
Count 1, 2,
parenting skills.
3, jump. Remember the houseboat? You jumped off the roof?
Again, no judgment.
Come on, do it. This is so fantastic.
I'm scared that there's sharks.
There's no sharks in this water. None.
Even up there?
Nope.
Is there anything that will eat me?
Nothing that will eat you.
Kill me?
Nope.
The sea lions might.
Nope.
She saw a
Stay
sea
away
lion
from
in
you.
there.
You're going to be in for all of 5 seconds. You can do it.
How many of you can resonate with that? Right? It's like you're brought up to the edge. You have to overcome fear, and oftentimes it's just fear of looking bad or fear of failure, and sometimes even fear of success. Right? And so we need to take action and overcome fear. We'll come back to that. You'll see how it all ends up in the end. I'm not going to leave you hanging, but you do have to wait till the end to see. So raise your hand if you feel like sometimes your life's a little chaotic and it's moving a little too fast. Yeah. Or maybe sometimes you just can't get enough done and you're on a hamster wheel, right? Our lives demand our attention, and we demand the attention of others. Where do we choose to place our attention and how we choose to spend our time and attention, we sometimes think is our choice, but again, sometimes it's in that automatic pilot. So let's take a moment and see what we notice about our attention. So if you're willing to do an activity with me, let's see if I can do this over here. So if you would just sit up nice and tall, place your feet flat on the ground, and then hold your hands apart. I'm going to count backwards, 3, 2, 1, and then together we're going to count out loud 1, 2, 3 while clapping our hands 3 times. So I'll show you. I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, and then together we're going to go 1, 2, 3, clapping your hands as hard as you can, and then holding them out like you're holding a football. And then I'm going to kind of guide you through a little process. Okay? Ready? 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. Now, without looking at your hands and either closing your eyes or taking a gaze to the ground, see if you can bring all of your attention in between your hands. You may notice some tingling in the hands, some prickliness, maybe some temperature change. And just see if you can keep your attention between the hands. And then we're going to play with our attention. So taking all the attention between your hands and moving it all to your right thumb. Again, keeping all of your attention in the right thumb, noticing any sensations, tingly, prickly, hot or cold. And then letting go of that attention back to between your hands. And then gathering all of that attention between your hands and bringing it over to your left pinky. Noticing sensations there. And then if you really want to play with your attention, gathering all that attention from your pinky and bringing it just into the fingernail of that pinky. All of the attention just in the fingernail. Noticing any sensations. And then releasing the attention back between your hands. And then if you're not closing your eyes, inviting you to close your eyes if it's comfortable, or just taking a gaze to the ground. And for 1 minute, place your attention on the breath. No need to change the way you're breathing. Just seeing if you can keep your attention on the breath. It's something we do 20,000 times a day, but rarely ever pay attention to. You may notice your mind being pulled to distractions, to-do lists, body pain or sensation, prior conversations. If you become distracted, just return your attention to the breath. And then when you're ready, slowly and quietly bring your hands down to your lap. And then if anyone's willing to share what that was like for you or what you noticed. Yeah.
So when we moved into the breathing exercises, I was trying to
Mm-hmm.
And how I did that was considering like the difference between the space and taking up in between breaths. Like my chest is further out and then it's closer in. So I just thought about that. Like how is my mass changing? Or am I like moving the air around me as my chest moves?
So you were like visualizing the actual inhalation, exhalation, and what that might actually look like if you could see it. Yeah, great. Anyone else? What did you notice? Yeah.
I know that my attention was focused on breathing, and in that moment I kind of separated my mind from my body, where I was like, I'm thinking about how my body is creating this rhythm, to keep me alive while I think about it. But also I noticed when I opened my hands before, or my eyes before I dropped my hands, they were still exactly the same place.
Uh-huh.
And briefly I looked around and some people kind of curled in, so all of that attention had changed, but mine was in the same place.
Oh, interesting. Cool. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, no, you were. Yeah.
No, it's funny. I went straight into yoga breathing.
Oh, okay.
But it's just like your mind's trained to do it.
That's an automatic pilot, right? Just kind of a habit.
Right when you told me to like focus on my breathing, I immediately went to
To yoga breathing. Yeah. Yeah.
as you were telling us to go to the different, like my thumb and
Uh-huh.
different hands, like everything felt heavier. Like as soon as I started to put all the energy into my pinky, I'm like, okay, why does my pinky feel so much heavier?
Yeah.
I'm like, I try to keep it up, and
Yeah.
wherever the attention was, that body part.
Yeah, thank you for that. I did this with a group of senior executives, and there was this big guy, and he was like a 5-year-old when he shared his like what he noticed, and he's like, when I put all of my attention on my thumb, it was like it got bigger. And so, but it's such a great metaphor in life. When you bring all of your attention to something, whether that's the bad grade or a poor relationship or a positive relationship, it magnifies, right? And so what you focus on is what you feel. And we actually have choice. Do we want to focus on the negative things or do we want to focus on the positive things? And it doesn't mean that you ignore the other, but it's about having choice in it versus like your mind just automatically going there. Anyone else? Yeah. Oh, go ahead. The gentleman in the hat and then.
I found it funny. It was like, okay, it's a concentration exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like every single distraction that I had, and even like 10 that I was like, oh, yeah, that's a thing. We're like immediately like, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
there's all these things. It's like, no, please, not now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fighting, like focus the entire time.
Yeah, and we just get used to that, right? That's just like the way we are and the way we live. So bringing that consciousness to it, you're just like, whoa, that's a lot of overload. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt the same thing. I was kind of drifting off, and I'm like, ooh, hypnotism would be pretty cool. That's where my mind was wanting to go, but then when I channeled the focus,
Mm-hmm.
I totally felt the tingles.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes when we do like longer exercises, someone will be like, oh, you know what? I don't really like that mindfulness practice thing because it makes my hip hurt. It's like, well, no, your hip was always hurting. You just didn't slow down enough to know that you had pain in a particular area. So anyway, anyone else? No? Great. So the demand of attention, right, is the first thing. Now, when we can bring pause every day, it's similar to lifting weights or exercising. We really want to strengthen that muscle of attention, right? And because when we can strengthen that muscle of attention, we can grow our capacity to choose where we place our attention. And our attention is unconsciously being pulled all the time. And so I want to give you a couple of practices that you can walk away and do. Bringing attention to the breath is something that you can always do, right? And you can do it for 30 seconds. You can do it for a minute, however, whatever's comfortable for you. But sometimes that's really difficult for people. So another way to anchor your attention is through counting. And so you want to count your breath. So we'll just do a practice for a minute on this, where for 1 minute, what you want to do is count the, you're going to inhale, exhale, and that's 1. And then inhale, exhale, 2. So you want to count 10 breaths on the exhale. And as your mind gets distracted, because it will, the mindfulness practice is not about making thoughts go away. You're always going to have thoughts. It's really just about not noticing that you've been distracted and then bringing your attention back. And so when your mind wanders during that counting exercise, then you have to start over at 1 again. Okay? You ready? And you can do this with eyes open. If you keep your eyes open, maybe just look into your lap or to the ground, or you can close your eyes if it's comfortable. All right, ready? Go ahead. Okay, one or two comments on what that was like? Easier, harder, or just what you noticed? Yeah. Seemed easier. Yep. For some, it's easier. Anyone else? Yeah. So yes, so some will be easier, some is harder. You know, did it seem more like a goal you were trying to achieve or something that then maybe stressed your system out a little bit? That's possible. Yeah. Anyone else? No. So when you start noticing what your automatic pilot is and what your habits are, you're going to start realizing all of that conditioning start setting some of your expectations just in work and life and relationship with other people. I always use the example of our expectations of people we're in relationship with, right? So either a partner or a family member, and you think you know how they're going to react, which almost always is the case sometimes, but sometimes they're going to react differently. But you go in with this set expectation about how they're going to react, and oftentimes they do because you've placed that expectation. You see what you want to see, right? And so this next part is a great study that I took from my body language mentor, Vanessa Van Edwards, and it's too good not to share. And it illustrates the power of the brain and our expectations. And we tend to see what we expect to see, right? We tend to taste what we expect to taste. And remember, the brain scans for patterns, right? So we're automatically looking for this. So this way, the brain is powerful. It shapes our reality. And this is a concept we call lensing. And so back in 2006, Brian Wansink ran a study where he had participants enter a dark room and eat some strawberry yogurt. And then he asked them to rate the yogurt based on its flavor. And 59% said it has a great strawberry flavor. Now here's the catch. The yogurt was chocolate. So our brains expect to taste the way we expect it to taste, right? So that's, I mean, almost 60% of people thought it tastes like strawberry, but it was a chocolate flavored yogurt. So that's a really great study. Also, we went to go see Vanessa at the World Domination Summit in Portland this summer to do a talk. So we were part of her human behavior lab. And so we did our own lensing experiment with unsuspecting participants. And so I wanted to share this video. Let's see, I hope this will work. And we called this the switcheroo.
We had you come to registration. We distracted you with a heart. And then my colleague Danielle handed you a brief survey. Some of you might see this looked familiar. And then she pretended that she couldn't find a pen. And while she was down, another colleague popped up and handed you a pen. Now, we wanted to see how many people would notice that they actually were talking to a completely different person. How many of you think made it? Let's see how our first person does.
I'm Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Nice to meet you. Where are you from? Let me get you a pen really quick. It dropped or something. Hold on. Here's your pen.
Nope.
Thank you.
Nope.
Appreciate it.
Nope. Nope.
Let's do this.
All right, let's try again. Let's try again. Here's Michael.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Nope. Did you notice anything weird about our survey? Anything at all?
Weird about the survey?
Yeah, did you notice anything
Weird?
anything weird? How about, did you notice Jose?
That's what?
Did you notice Jose?
Oh, I did not notice.
Did you notice that they switched places?
No, I totally did not.
So we are doing a little experiment and you're on camera.
Oh my God.
No. Oh, Michael, I'm sorry, Michael. All right, let's try again. This is one of our
Let me get you a
speakers.
pen really quick. Hold on.
Charles is one of our speakers. Let's see what happens.
There you go.
And no. No.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Poor Charles was a good sport. I'm so sorry, Charles. All right, let's try this one. And nope. Nope. Was she the same person you shook hands with? So we switched on you. And we've been filming too.
This is a quick 2-question survey.
So this is one of my
and Let me
favorites.
grab a pen for you. Just one sec.
So this time she actually carried on a conversation with 2 different people, but didn't notice that we accidentally switched on her.
That was a lot.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thanks, girl. Maybe. So you notice, Lauren, did you notice Danielle? No. Did you notice there's also... All right, one more. And this is my absolute favorite. So 3 of you, and I'm so sorry if you're in the audience, you attended our table together. We thought for sure you're going to notice.
You another one.
All 3 of you, and we decided to switch 3 times during this one.
And then
This is called the triple switch.
I'm so sorry.
Here she goes.
Stop.
Nope. Nope.
Let me see.
Okay, she's gonna do it one more time. Wait a minute, wait. Let's see about this time. Nope.
We don't have another pen. Oh, we do have another pen. I have a pen. You have one? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Marla. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So have you met Lauren? No. But have you met Danielle? No. Have you noticed they've been switching places on you? No. We've been switching 3 times on you. Wanted to see if you noticed.
No, I just took it. I just saw you. I didn't see you at all.
We talked to both of them.
I did.
Yes, you did.
And I verbally talked to you. Oh, man.
There's also some cameras. You just want to point at some cameras. You can just wave.
So you'd like to think this doesn't happen in your life, but it does. So if you think about communication and conversations you have, you're already going into conversation thinking what you might want to hear, and you are hearing it, even if the other person isn't saying it. When I was learning about this, my husband and I, we have at the bottom of our stairs are these hardwood floors, and in the winter, we realized we had a leak somewhere because the water kept coming up through the hardwood floors, right? So he figured out where the leak was, he patched it, and I had left before him one morning, and I had spilled some of my coffee, right? Coffee is very different than water. It is not, you can't see through it, right? I didn't have time to clean it up until I was going to come back in. Well, he walked past it, and he thought it was water. And I was like, no. He's like, oh, we're leaking again. I'm like, no, that was my coffee. He's like, no, it wasn't. I could see the hardwoods through it. I was like, no, you couldn't. It was my coffee. But it's like we have that conditioning, right? It kept happening where it was water coming through the floor. And then we fixed it, and I spilled coffee, totally different. But our mind just automatically jumps to what we're used to. So just start paying attention to that, like in your day-to-day life. It's really interesting. And so expectations kill all possibility, right? But if we can override our lizard brain and our limbic system, we can create more possibility when we can have control over our attention. And so we've explored the demand of our attention, and so now we want to look at the demand of time. Now consider your time is not being spent on what you value, right? We talked about how Our phones distract us. We spend a lot of time on our phones. And if we're checking Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, whatever the social media apps are, these distractions are taking away for time where we can be creating and contributing to other areas of our life. Often, we're living in a time economy, right? So we're always looking for more convenient ways or things to help be more efficient with our time. We're looking at like Uber or Blue Apron or Amazon. Like I won't drive down the street a mile to go to Target to pick up toothpaste. I'd rather just order it on Amazon even if I have to wait a day, right? My husband just yesterday is like, I'm not going to go buy clothes anymore. I'm going to buy them online. So just start looking, in the places in your life where they're designed for efficiency, but oftentimes it is more of a distraction than an autopilot that we're using it rather than efficiency. And so what we really want to do, these efficiencies want to free up time so that we can choose to do with that time what we're choosing to do versus just having it be distracted and seduced away somewhere else. And then it can lead to that devoid of connection, right? And so we're social beings. We need human connection. It's not just the connection on Facebook and how many friends we have or in LinkedIn or in Instagram and Snapchat. The real engagement happens in real face-to-face, real-time communication. And we do need both, but there is a difference between feeling connected and being connected. I met a new friend recently, and she shared with me that in 10 years of marriage, she was so lonely, and now being single, she doesn't feel alone at all. Big difference, big difference. So building that deep human connection happens in real face-to-face contact. And by learning human behavior and the science behind communication and connection, we can begin to develop those deeper connections. So transforming your relationships allows you to influence your work, your family, your world. In order to influence, you need other people, and that influence comes from communicating and understanding the human dynamics. Transformation is a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, not just becoming a better caterpillar. Transformation takes conscious and deliberate choice and action, and it begins with yourself. So becoming aware is the first step, becoming aware of yourself, and then becoming aware of others is the second step. And body language is so integral in how we communicate with people, yet it's a skill that we often don't talk about. So in 30 minutes, 2 people can send over 800 nonverbal signals. Body language is a conscious and deliberate behavior. It requires observing our outer world. There's something called the facial feedback hypothesis, and in just 3/100ths of a second, our facial expressions will mirror other people's facial expressions. And it's so quick. So if somebody's angry, it's almost like they can flicker a kind of a vibe of anger in you without you even realizing it. And if I made you smile, if I said, okay, everybody, you're just going to smile throughout my whole entire presentation, this presentation would be more enjoyable to you just by smiling. So indulge me in another activity. Go ahead and place your hands in your lap. And then take your fingers and make an OK sign. And hold up the OK sign like this. And go ahead and place it on your chin. Now raise your hand if it's on your cheek right now. I see most of you have it on your cheek, be honest. Right? You will do more... You will do more of what people do than what people say. Right? So I said chin, but I showed cheek, and most of you just did. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up over it. That's just how the brain works, right? So research shows that nonverbal communication is about 60% of our communication. But some studies even show as high as 93%. It's one of the most powerful tools you have, and we spend so much time on what we want to say, but rarely any time on how we want to say it. Nonverbal is considered vocal tone, facial expressions, and body language. So if you all walked in and I was standing here like this, how excited would you be for my presentation? Yeah, thumbs down, right? Or if I was standing like this. I'm so happy to be here.
feel, right? And just observing that. So nonverbal has a lot more weight. It's 12 to 13 times more powerful than words. So I want you to leave with 2 strategies that you can implement right away. The first is around first impressions. We often don't think about our first impression when we're meeting people in class or at school or networking events. And so there's a great study by Frank Bernieri. He took mock job interviews. He created mock job interviews and filmed 20 minutes and had trained evaluators come in and rate people on their warmth, confidence, and competence to see how hireable they were. And then he did a second trial where the evaluators just looked at the first 20 seconds. So it was basically they walked in, they gave a handshake, and they sat down, and then the videos cut off right before any verbal was heard. What they found were the results were exactly the same. And so what this hints at is that what we say does not have as much impact on what the first impression is of people when they first see you. So that's your eye contact, handshake, which we'll talk a little bit about. Your first impression happens the moment someone sees you, which could be from across the room. Oftentimes they think it's, the first words that come out of your mouth, but it is the moment that someone sees you. So make sure you're bringing awareness to your first impression because it matters. The next one is trust indicator. What part of the body do you think people notice first? Go ahead. Eyes? What else? Anybody else? Kind of posture from the shoulders up. It's actually hands. And this dates back to caveman days where, we talked about the oldest part of our brain is the lizard brain and the brainstem. And so cavemen were looking from afar. Does that person have a club in their hand, or are they a friend or a foe? And they're making a split decision for their own safety, right? And so there are studies out there, but one that's really interesting is that jurors who found defendants putting hands under the table found them as more sneaky, untrustworthy, and deceitful. So our hands are our biggest trust indicators. So think about those times that you're, talking with people. This arm folding can be a little bit controversial in the sense that a lot of people say it's just comfort, which may or may not be true, but oftentimes it's comfortable because you're blocking. You're closing yourself off so not to be vulnerable. And so just something to pay attention to. Oftentimes people put their hands in their pocket. So that first impression people are getting is that they shouldn't trust you. And so even when you're in class, keeping your hands up above the table, in meetings or talking with people, having your hands up and visible, right? So you want to make sure they're visible and expressive. And we're going to talk about handshakes in a little bit, but really avoid the pockets, keep them above. And there's not real right or wrong in body language, but there is a spectrum. And so, the blocking behavior or stiffness is on the low end. If you're all over the place here and have these jazz hands, that's not ideal either. So the ideal is really in the kind of torso area, like within your body shape and not extending too far out. If I was standing here and talking all like this, you would be very distracted by that and probably not hear much of what I had to say. The other spectrum that I like to talk about is the eye contact, because eye contact also releases oxytocin when you look people in the eyes. And so there is a right way to do eye contact. And you want to be at about 60 to 70% gaze. 100%, creepy, right? And then less than 60% is a little bit kind of avoidant or a little distant or like you're uninterested. And so oftentimes when you see the 100% eye contact, is a lot of people maybe just think that that's what they're supposed to do, but that it's not comfortable for anybody to have that intense 100% stare. So these blocking behaviors are driven by your lizard brain, and it's to help keep you safe and protected. So a study found a good handshake is worth how many hours of FaceTime do you think? 3 hours of FaceTime. So why? Well, first, the brain relaxes, right, when it sees your hands. And then the touch releases oxytocin, and then the eye contact releases oxytocin. So then it's just a real quick, fast connection that can build the trust and connection. So think about the handshakes in the beginning. How was your handshake? How was the other person's handshake? What was the first impression you had of the person, and particularly if you don't know them, right? You want to make sure that your handshake is vertical, dry, and firm. Nobody wants a fishy, right, or a really weak handshake. You want a nice, firm grip. But you don't want to squeeze too tight either, right? And so sometimes people will ask me, well, I'm sweaty all the time, or I get really nervous. What do I do? Hands by your side and just wipe. Wipe them dry before you reach your hand out. If you're, in a networking situation or a drinking situation, have a napkin around your glass or your beer bottle or whatever you drink these days, and have those extra napkins to kind of help with that, right? Or sometimes it's just the condensation, and you can blame it on that. So the first step towards getting somewhere is to decide that you're not going to stay where you are, right? So moving to that choice economy, you have to override those autopilot habits and create new mental habits. And this is your chance to win at work, to win at school, to contribute and create and shift your perspective. Just like our phones have default settings, so do our brains. So we need to make conscious choices to have connection and that deeper communication. All right, I'm going to show you. I'm going to have to close out of this. So there is an abundance of choice out there. I'm going to end with the video of my daughter. Is the video up there? You can do it. And it's going to feel so good because you're going to be scared, and then you're going to come out and you're going to be like, that was fun. And then we're going to pull you away, because then you're going to do it again and again and again. Awesome. She said, I want to do it again. So just jump. The ROI will pay you dividends. I have time, 7 minutes for questions. Yeah.
So you were talking about how expectations are reality. So say you're working with a tough client.
Mm-hmm.
You've had a history of it being difficult.
Sure. Yeah.
What are your recommendations on how having to change that so you don't automatically hear them when their
Yeah.
name pops up on your phone?
Yeah. Yeah. When you can, so through mindfulness, I've been able to do some of this. So I run a preschool also, and the parents sometimes are the hardest clients. And so there's that feeling like, oh, there's that parent again, right? But through my practice, what I realized, you're able to create that space between reaction and response. And so you see the number come up. There's something called beginner's mind too. So it's approaching every situation as it's brand new. And so you notice the name on the phone. You notice the trigger of fear or whatever the conditioning is there, right? And you take a few deep breaths, or you do the counting breaths, whatever is easiest. And there's a lot around language too. Like this time it can be different, right? And so you really go into it with an open and curious mind versus the expectation like he's just going to yell at me, or she's just going to, chew me out, or whatever it is, right? And so, and it's not always they might still react that way. Particularly in person, it works. And it doesn't always happen, like if it's a client that you're seeing regularly, it may take a few times. But often when we go in with a certain expectation of what someone's going to do, we have our litany of responses, right? That we're going to, if he says this, I'm going to say this. If she does this, I'm going to do this. So if you can go in with an open and curious mind and just listen, true active listening, their behavior will change. Because what they're doing is feeding off of your nervous system, because you really can't change anyone. And this happened with my husband at work. I was talking him through this kind of situation. And have you ever heard that saying, people are a mirror reflection of you, right? And so he really tried it at work, and he had a woman colleague of his that he worked with, that very contentious relationship. She would just come into his office and had stuff to say, and he would respond right back. And so he stopped responding, and he kept listening, and then he validated, and then he let her be on her way. And then within a few weeks, he said the entire relationship changed. Yeah. But you have to create that space so you can like almost become a third-party observer of the two of you in the relationship that you currently have, so that you can shift it into a different kind of relationship. Anyone else? Yeah.
Since the beginning was dedicated to the demon technology and mushroom pockets, how do you recommend
Oh.
such a distractible?
It is, so I've turned off all of my notifications. That way you are making a choice to go in to see who emailed you, who left you messages, who liked whatever, right? If you want to follow someone, Tristan Harris actually has a whole thing on this right now. He used to work at Google, and so he's kind of the one that kind of brought all this attention to what they're actually doing. He has a great TED Talk, and it's called, his organization is Time Well Spent. But he has some really good tips on there and resources. I haven't done this yet, but like taking the actual app off your phone, like Instagram, and having to go in to the site and do it that way. And then the other thing that I've done is take my phone and make it grayscale. Because color plays, like I even organize my apps by color. I know, I geek out in that way. But if you go in and change your phone to grayscale, you are not going to want to look at your phone. I did it. I looked at it, and it was like, they do those colors for a reason, right? It's very visually attractive to you. In black and white, you have no desire to look at your phone. And so once you switch it, it's like in settings and accessibility or something like that. Once you switch it, though, you can switch it back to color, because it's really hard to do anything. Like, it's really hard to post something on Instagram, if you, like for me, if it's not in color, it's like I don't really know what I'm looking at. So try it just as like a social experiment. It's really interesting. Yeah. But take your notifications off, and then take the apps off so you can consciously go in and go to those apps. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was like recommendation from you as to how to come off as a confident and put together really able to do what you're trying to get to?
Yeah. So posture is a huge one, right? And then just the blocking behavior, keeping your torso open, keeping your arms down. I know it's really uncomfortable for people to like stand like this, right? And so what I realized is that the whole idea, like beauty is skin deep, right? Like that our body language comes from how we feel inside. So there's a lot of deep work that sometimes needs to be done for some people. But for most of us, it's just bringing some awareness to it. But I started working out with a personal trainer 2015. And so I've lost like 25 pounds. But what I noticed, this is so fascinating, because I was in the middle of my body language training when this was happening. What I noticed is when it was my turn, the trainer would come up with the iPad so we could pull up my chart. And I would stand here like, sometimes like this, or sometimes just like this, right? So total blocking behavior. My head was often down. Within 4 months, because I don't know that I visually looked that different, but I felt stronger and felt better. I started standing like this or like this. And then like, this is like the most powerful position you can stand is like this. So I'd be standing like this in front of my trainer, and I only noticed it because I was in the process of getting this certification. I was like, oh my gosh, that like happened naturally, right? And so the better you feel about yourself, the more open you'll become. Yeah. So, I mean, it's like if you're presenting in front of a class, there's some, have you heard of Amy Cuddy? There's some controversy on that right now because her study wasn't replicable.
but I do this before any time I talk in front of people, is you stand like this for 2 minutes. I feel better. I don't know if it's a placebo effect, but, placebo is real too. So, but yeah, and then some other things like before you walk into a class or even a party, they talk about casting the net. So sometimes we walk in, right? A low power position is we're on our phone. So when we walk in like this, you're automatically sending a signal that you're not confident. And this is just an unconscious thing that happens in our brains. It's not, it's not something that we're doing on purpose, but the brain just scans for that. And so make a conscious decision before you walk into a classroom or to a party is like the phone is away. You walk in with your shoulders back, your head up, and then they say cast the net. So really visualize pushing your own personal bubble space to all four corners of the room, in front of you and behind you. And that's like to build charisma and influence, to have people attracted to you, is by using your energy and pushing it out so that everybody in the room now is within your space. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
For a second question, but I noticed the book on there was called
Captivate, yeah. Yeah, really good book. Anyone else? Well, thank you so much for being here. Hope you're enjoying the symposium. If you're interested in a newsletter, I have a email sign up. I send out a monthly newsletter that's on that table over there. So thank you.